Hi there. Welcome to my podcast. I am excited for the first time today. I am not doing a live. I'm actually checking out what Substack has to offer when you just record and you are not necessarily going live. I think it's so interesting to be prepared for live interviews. And especially when I get to talk to someone else, like my brain is on, that adrenaline rush does something. This is the space where it's a little bit tougher. You kind of keep in mind, like, oh, maybe I can go back and edit it, even though I really don't want to edit these things. And a lot of people that I work with who want to show up and show how they are in real life do not have time to go back and do all the perfectionistic editing that is a part of the deal. So I'm testing this out. And I also am going to stay live, stay here again. There it goes. Stay just solo conversation. I'm gonna dive in today and talk about large language models, how to use AI in a way that makes it easier to get what you need done. And where I support people is largely in the space of getting content done, whether that content is focused on creating their course or marketing their course or selling their course. That's the way I tend to support people. And so I'm thinking about a lot of different ways in which we build incredible courses using AI. We make them much faster, we make them more engaging for students. And how do we actually market those courses so that they don't just live somewhere on a platform to be sold? Hey, it does feel good to actually complete a course. Like, it does feel great. But it feels even better when someone buys it. And then, like, the cherry on top, or maybe actually the thing that keeps us from continuing to create courses or continuing to market, is when people tell you, hey, the thing you made helps me. And that feels incredible. You're like, wait, how did you watch this on your own time and it helped you? And that's amazing. That feels like empowering. I don't know what it is. I'll think about it. I'll actually introduce myself. I'm Dr. Stephanie Thrower. I'm a psychologist. I have a private practice, and I also am a AI coach and consultant. And I especially focus in on courses. And I've been asked some interesting questions about, like, why would we even need courses anymore? And can AI teach us everything? And I am really curious about that question because I do think AI can teach us and offer a lot of great information. And yet I still enroll in courses for the feeling of belongingness, for to see real life human experience of what it is, what it takes to create these courses, to be an entrepreneur. And then I think there are things that I do to support people or other people have done to support me that AI is just not going to do because it's not a living, breathing thing out there in the world. As much as we keep calling building your AI brain, our brains are so much cooler than what AI does. I know that sounds weird and maybe like a little anti AI, but our human brains are amazing. And I mean, all brains are cool. As my dog is sitting right here. She's got a great brain. But yeah, the research that talks about the difference of what babies can do with their language and with a lot less energy than what AI can do is something that I wholeheartedly believe and see on a day-to-day basis. But we're going to talk about how we use our brains to work with AI to help us, I don't know, make things faster, um, be more efficient, and get the things that we need done. Right? So, what are my notes? I've got, I think here's some tips that I think are really helpful that, because the question that really came to my mind when I was thinking about how do we use AI better is a gigantic question. And it's also really hard to answer because AI just keeps getting better, faster, more intense, um, every week, every day. And we're very much like so far away from the core and center of like this driving massive industry of competition and I mean, it's a global thing, right? And so outside, we're here as like small and micro business owners being like, oh, how can I use this? How can I keep up? Well, you can't. You just can't keep up. And that's totally fine. I think we have to be centered and focus on what are my goals? What do I actually want to be accomplishing? What could I use help in? What am I struggling with? And so here's what I see commonly for people who are struggling. Well, we're all struggling, right? But like who are struggling specifically with AI, don't like their outputs, are just finding themselves being like, this was really good yesterday. This is not good today. One thing that helps is I am not the most organized, tidy human in the world. I'm not like a hot mess totally. It it sort of depends on the thing. Um, but having an organized space in your AI account for information is really helpful. And this is where my qualitative brain goes to work, which is thinking about categorizing different ways which I would like help from AI. I've been playing around with this so much. So in my Claude account, it's fairly tidy, meaning I use project folder. So if you go over to the left side of the screen, you can see the option for projects. Open that, create new projects, and just play around with certain categories of the work that you do. I have multiple businesses, and so I try to focus even if it's just it might be ideal to have multiple projects within my business. I also want to make sure that my therapy business and my coaching business is separate and other business stuff that I'm doing on top of that, right? Or home stuff. So it's fairly tidy, and meaning that I'm not opening up chats in kind of willy nilly. I tend to open up new chats within the folder that has quite a bit of context. So within your project folder, you have the ability to upload a ton of different files. They're saying more and more that it's helpful if you download your files in Markdown. It's like now an option when you go to Google Docs, you download it into a Markdown file. That is easier and takes less tokens for Claude to read. And so you fill your project with these really important documents that you want to make sure that the AI has context. So that word is used a lot in AI. When you are asking it to do something, context often means, what do I think is a good thing? What information do I want you to persistently know about me? Right? That's a term of having persistent memory, right? And the neater your context is, the more clear it is for AI. It can scan through a lot of documents, a lot of words, a lot of meaning, and it can decide, okay, this is probably what Stephanie wants when she goes to ask to take a transcription of an interview and turn it into an article, right? And so context is really powerful and gets like, that's kind of a simple version of it. Although I'm like, is it simple? I don't know. It can be a lot more intense where when I go to create my weekly content flywheel system, I do a brain dump. I like talk into my phone, my voice memo. I talk about a bunch of stuff. I take that voice memo transcript, and that goes through a full system where it reads through a ton of files and creates a document for me that's like 22 pages long of a bunch of different content I can use. I'm at a point where, so that's okay automation. I'm aware that at that point I could even have agents go through and edit and create and even make creatives from that. But I'm still pretty hands-on in figuring out what I want to be posting because I don't know, my business is like still evolving. And so that's the interesting part of when you have files in your projects, you want to make sure that you are updating them as your business evolves, especially if you're in the newer stage and you want to hone in on like, what do I even offer? Who am I really wanting to work with? Because that's this own mindset journey where people are like, well, I really want to work with this group of people, but I just don't think that they will want to work with me. And so, because I've had success in this one space, like I'm going to focus on them, right? So, that's a really easy thing to do with our brains and kind of a normal trajectory. I do think so. My next tip, so that's your organization tip. My next tip is prompts matter a lot initially, and if you're doing something new. But having a perfect prompt on a thing that you've done repeatedly might not be that important. And so I think that it is really helpful to know what goes in a good prompt. And we can talk about that in another video if you're really interested. There are a lot of people that talk about it. But you're really thinking about having, especially if you're doing something new with your account, you want that prompt to be very solid. And that's where it's kind of handy to borrow it from someone else. But if you do, read your prompts, right? This is a thing that, I'm not always going to do, but when I actually take the time and I ask Claude to create a prompt for me to do a thing, that's also really helpful. If I have kind of a prompt, if I have an idea of what I want it to do, this works a lot in images because images work a little differently. I will ask Claude or ChatGPT to write me a better prompt. And it will go, it will actually do a lot of really great work. And then I might want to tweak parts where I know that prompt is going to take me to like a funny place that I don't like. So, this is the thing that we gain practice in of understanding what kind of prompts lead to the kind of outputs we want. And there's a concept that I find really helpful for us to understand, which is called the jagged frontier. And it's helpful. A lot of when we're working with AI, our brains are going to affect how we understand whether it's good, whether it is friendly. Like this is really key. We, as our human psychology, is going to assume, or we are wired in a way that if someone has human language or something has human language, we are so much more biased to anthropomorphize it, meaning we will give it human qualities, even if it does not have, it is not human. And so it really trips our brain up a lot when we work with AI because it's using language. And sometimes it uses language so definitively, it is and so confidently that it's very hard for us to understand that that's not confidence. That's just knowing how to use that kind of language. And so some of us may have been duped by people who use very confident language and they are promising us things that sound really wonderful. And then we spend some time with that person or we do, we like do buy their thing and we're like, oh, this was a great like initial facade of confidence that isn't something I exactly think is high quality or thoughtful, right? AI can do that because it has a great capture of what definitive confident language is, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is confident. And when you sometimes inquire more, it's like, no, I actually wasn't sure about that response. I just said it that way. Going back to this concept of what is the jagged frontier of AI, we often get thrown off because AI can be so good at some things, and very close next to it, or something we determine to be very simple or easy, it can be so bad. And that, I think, that unreliability of quality can really throw us off. And part of it is because we don't understand why that simple thing is so simple for us. Part of it is because we don't understand how the thing was coded, or what the like layers of code are. When when we're interacting with ChatGPT or Claude, we're not actually interacting with the model directly. We're actually only interacting with the model that sits on top of a ton of context that the actual company has in for us. So sometimes that's why we, at first glance, would feel very different about different models, right? Because we're not interacting with the large language model itself. We're actually interacting with the system around the model. I don't know. And tell me if your brain is like, ugh, boring or overwhelmed or whatever. Would love to hear. The other concept that I think is really helpful is large language models, and creating visuals and images are very different kinds of AI. And so that's why we were at a place for a long time where AI images were so weird and strange. And like, I love this one image that I created last year, probably with Midjourney, where it was like, I think I asked for a girl with a ponytail, and something was, she was getting a paper, and like she had a ponytail, but like the paper also had a ponytail. I don't know why, it just still makes me giggle. So, AI images use diffusion models. So large language models are very fancy prediction machines, right? So they take tokens, which can be parts of words, and they see the parts of words that we have prompted, and then they will use math to understand what we might want in the answers. And so that doesn't work in creating images. There, when we're creating images with AI, it's called diffusion. And so it's sort of like how the shapes relate to another. And if you watch some of them be built, although you can't see it in right now, I think you can see it more often in Midjourney, where it's like kind of foggy and blurry, and then eventually like it gets more clear, and that is the AI making decisions on what to do with the relationships with space. And so I find that really helpful when I'm interacting and using AI, because I have to have a different mindset when I have a very specific most of my very specific prompts with AI and images turn out quite basic, actually. I find giving the AI a little bit more room to breathe and to be creative um, ends up in a lot better AI results. I just have to be really clear on the vibe and some of the words that I want to be depicted in the AI. So like yesterday, I'm going live in a couple of days. I don't even know what day. On Thursday with Lucretia, and I wanted to create a thumbnail for it. And one of the useful terms I used was neon chic. And so definitely pinks were coming through, and there was like some feminine qualities to the image, but also clearly showing neon in a way that was, I don't know, a little cuter. So, yeah, having those words, a lot of us don't have those words ready and fresh. And sometimes, if you're in that space, take an image that you like, go into Pinterest and say, I like this vibe, go back into ChatGPT or Claude, have it look at the image and help pull out some words for how the AI describes the image. that is super useful because a lot of us don't have that language just at hand to be like, oh yeah, I want neon chic for this specific thing. And as someone who really likes to do branding and visually using visuals in my teaching too to help people, like marketing, you really want people's attention, but also when you're teaching people, you want their attention. You want them to like not zone out. You want to you want to be surprising with your language, but you also want your visuals to be like pleasant and on brand and interesting, right? Okay, those are my tips for today. I have loved doing this. Let me know if you have any questions, and I am happy to talk more about this stuff in the future. Okay, take care.